Hello and welcome to Step-by-Step Visual Effects Breakdowns by Kirill. I'm a producer, visual effects supervisor, compositor. I'm also a generalist in 3D and I'm very good at tracking. And if you want the proof of that, you can watch my showreel or my courses on FX PhD that I've done about compositing in After Effects and about compositing in Nuke. So in these classes we will break down the shots that I've supervised and composited, or just composited, or sometimes I've done them from scratch from 3D, and I have them all stored in my archive because I'm kind of person that stores everything that he has done, and I always feel bad about they are just lying there on my hard drives and I'm not talking about them because I really love to teach people and there's plenty of information I can give to you by breaking them down, so that you will understand everything, and when you will try to do something similar, the techniques I'll show you now will come to your mind at the right time because you will think about the similar task. And in this class we're gonna take a look on this desert shot, which looks perfect and real. However, all the desert is CG, and I was challenged to supervise this shot and change all the environment, extend the roads, make it a desert out of this environment. So let's zoom out to see our node graph and start breaking it down inside of Nuke and go into Houdini where the 3D was done when we will reach the backdrops of 3D. Guys, if you are my patrons on the Patreon, you got the project files but you don't have the pre-comps. That's because they weight too much. They weight like 10 gigs each, and it is not possible to store all of them for all the breakdowns. So if you want to follow along with the project files, you can connect them like that. Or even better, just re-render them through this same write node, setting the path for them on your local hard drives and then reloading them here so that you will be able to render everything. And thank you so much for supporting me. You are the reason I'm doing all this. So we will start with the source footage, which is here, and it is used 2 times here. A little bit messy setup of restoring the grain, which was needed in this time to be done this way, because the footage was retimed, and it is also used for the mainstream, where we use the undistorted and degrained footage to work with it. So first goes the denoising, and for denoising I always use the reduce noise because it is the best denoiser ever made. And after that I use the undistortion node. So if you don't have the reduce noise, but it's like an absolute must to have it, and this is the only third-party tool that will be in the project files that I'm giving away. So you can use the denoise node, and you can use the vector generator with it, which will analyze the motion of the footage and help the denoise node to analyze the noise. Yeah, it will give you a little bit better result than if you will just use the denoise node, but there's not much of a motion here, and you can definitely go just with one denoise node and connect it like that instead of the reduce noise node. But I will always use the reduce noise because I think that this is an absolute must for a compositor. So let's start with despilling the footage, for example here. And here comes already a very useful despill technique you can use in your projects. You only need the built-in tools inside of Nuke or your compositing software. After Effects has the same tools, for example. Any compositor has such tools, and it will give you a decent quality despill. You can try it by yourself. You only need the key light for this to key out the green color. You can actually take just a key light with default settings and set its key color with 1 for the green channel. And this way you will key out everything that is green, so you can subtract everything else from the source footage, leaving only the green stuff that key light sees as the green color, which you can desaturate and plus back, restoring the details that were lost because of the extraction of the key light. Such an easy way to despill the footage that gives a stunning result. You can try it right now. It will work like any high-end despill plugin for After Effects on Nuke, and this is just so simple. It's kind of a great example how you can not pollute your systems with thousands third-party plugins if you know what to do. So I think we can start with explaining what this backdrop is. These are rotos of the ground that were all put on corner pins that were exported out of Mocha. So let's switch to the alpha view here, which comes from the source noised footage, and see what we are doing here. So if we look into the alpha channel here, looks like we are cutting this region of the ground that will be left in the final shot, like that. So this is the ground here. Then we go to the diner, which nodes belongs here, and we are extracting the diner here. First of all, utilizing this green screen that we have here to extract its parts that are projected onto it, making it possible to key it. And when I was supervising this shot, we had two green screens, this one and this one, so I've put this one behind the close appearance of the transparent glasses of the car here, and this one I've put here because there were some glass here that are very hard to restore without the green screen, and everything else was rotoscoped, and I did the right thing. So the diner is being gotten out of here with mask on its letters, which are here because they are also used to create the no dispill mask, which is affecting our dispill to not dispill the actual diner. You see here that it changes its color pretty much if we are dispilling everything, so we wanted to leave its original color. That's why we've done the roto this way. Here are our foreground elements that are baked into this layer. Actually, we could use only one channel for this because we only need the alpha to be contained in this layer, but you know, when you are taking out your old scripts, you will always find something that is kind of deprecated way of your pipeline. So here we are extracting the car with a simple vanilla rotoscope, which gets more complex as the car moves here. This was done in silhouette by a roto artist. Extracted, and here comes our retime, which helps merge the retimed car with the fake car that is animated with transform node. So I'll show you the retimed car a little bit later. I have a reason for this. For now, let's see the actual desert, how the desert is done. So we can preview it. I guess here is a good place to see it all. This is all the desert merged together, showing through the pre-comps that are rendered out of the scanline render nodes to render it faster. Still pretty heavy. So it is not how the render from 3D looks like, obviously. The render from 3D was with a lot less of geometry that I've cloned to extend it there. And you see, as you are going more and more behind the diner, you see some fakeness here that we don't care about because the diner is here. And the farther we go, the less cacti are being cloned farther, because cacti can be only mapped on their geometry, which makes them a lot heavier than the grass that in far distance can be just projected on the ground. So I'll show you everything that was done here. So this is the render of the ground. The ground and objects were kinda separately rendered. So let's go down the stream here. We have a little bit of despill here to take out these greenish colors that we didn't like. Then we key out the sand and color correct it till it will match with the real sand. Here we are extracting the shadows of the objects that are on the ground that are hidden now, but their shadows are all rendered. But usually you'd like to do this with your 3D software, rendering out the correct path out of it. So here the depth is being corrected, yeah, and mapped back into the depth channel. Then we are pre-multiplying everything because the background is replaced. And here we add the road, which is made from the real road. So this is the source footage, which was taken and split to the parts of the roads which were extruded like that. Here are the roto paint patches, just a little to cover every imperfection there. Here the alpha for it is mapped, and then it is being corner pinned exactly to where it should be, and the road is done this way. You see this sand along the road, it is just gotten by the mask of noises. This is just different noises, different sizes, multiplying and merging with each other, and then graded in alpha channel to be multiplied by the core of the road, and then it is being used to add the sand at the edges of the road. Like that, making the road here a little bit transparent and adding some sand there, which nicely blends in after all the filtering. Here are the central marks of the road. So this is just a roto which is cloned a lot of times and then noised with multiplication of the noise. So just noise and noised, distorted a little, and then mapped on the road like that. Cool. Going further, last stripes. Some stripes were missing there and they are done here. And this is not just a static footage. There is 3 or 2 files there. Yeah, 2 files on the frame 280 and 455, 2 files. And the missing frames is set to nearest frame so that it will split here on 2 project 3Ds, freeze framed on the different frames to get the maximum sharpness of the projection. One for the part of the shot where the camera is high up, and another for the part of the shot when it reveals a lot of stuff on the right, which is missing in the first still frame that is being projected on 280. And we will break down the projection. After we will break down the desert stuff, which is everything besides the ground of the desert. And here it is. So everything is rendered out of Houdini, and I will also show you the Houdini scene. Everything but the wires that were rendered with geometry and black constant separately. So here we are making some adjustments in the color of the grass, grading the grass, making it less dark, like that. And here comes the cloning of the grass, which was really crucial because there was not enough elements there. They should have been done till the very end of the sand, but they took too much memory. That's why it was better to clone them on the compositing stage. So they are soloed here, like that, without the cacti, and then they are corner pinned farther away there. So they are made out of this render that was here, and then corner pinned, corrected with roto paint, and merged on top of the ground, because they work just fine if they are projected on the ground, not on their actual proxy geometry, on which we project everything that is closer. That was actually rendered from Houdini. So here is how the graded render looks like. So just a little bit lifted up. It's pre-melted here, and looks like it is without the power line, because the power line goes through another pipe. And the most hard was to do this closest power line stand, because this was to be matched with the real log here, which was kinda put where it should be. So it was rendered separately and then transformed in 3D to the exact position of this log. That's how it was done. And this is the rest of the power line stands, and they are rendered separately here onto their projection geometry. So this all leads us to our geometry, which is previewed through our tracked and solved camera. So the camera was done in Buju. I always use Buju for camera tracking. I just adore it because the process is absolutely the same as in every tracking software, and its automatic tracking is just amazing. I used a lot of target tracks, as you can see. I love target tracks. They really help to improve the track. Oh, there's some tracker jumping there. Hope it didn't screw up the solve. So we can use Nuke to view it in 3D. There's the point cloud, so we can attach it and see it. hit F to frame your selection in the viewport. This is how it looks like. And I also done the mesh out of the camera and the background to help me lay out things. So now to start breaking down the geometry, it is better to start with seeing it in Houdini. So the same camera solve imported into Houdini. You can see there's a lot of cameras in Houdini here actually, because all this scene was rendered out of Houdini and there was a lot of shots. This is just the hardest shot that was done here. This is the ground. This is not very interesting, just a plane with noise to make these hills far away on the sand. So the road, the views there, some details, you know. Pretty simple stuff. Let's see what's more interesting. The power line. This thing was rendered separately. The wires. Here they go. Wires, power line, cylinder, some detail on it. A diner. Helps to lay out things and cast shadows and reflections on objects. Phone box, also restored, and cars in the right way. The cars, the real cars were there. These are the 3D versions of them. So the most detailed is this Bonneville car, which was actually remodeled to match this car that we film here. And it was set there for another shot, so that's why it's now there, not hidden. So let's see the plants. The plants are the most interesting ones. So here's how the cacti looks like. So it was modeled in the software that is called P3, where you can quickly model the plants and stuff. And they were all imported here in Houdini. It's the variations of the cacti that were done for this scene. Some rocks, and just simplest thing that is laying on the ground. A little bit of polygons. The grass, also done in Speed Tree Modeler, in which you can kinda customize your tree. A very simple software, you can make a tree very quickly actually. So you add trunk, you add branches, then you add leaves, then you customize them, put the texture on them, and that's where all this grass comes from. Here are the variations of them that were done. So just like some small grass also done. And this was all scattered on to the sand and rendered through our camera. Then we've exported the low poly versions of them, which is in the same position, but they look like a very simple low poly rocks on which it is easier to project things. So I will show you how the proxy geometry looks like now in Nuke. So this is the geometry that I've imported here and on which I've done the projection. You see how simple this cacti is. So they are all scattered absolutely the same way, and on them we do the projection. And that's how projection looks like. The farther it goes, the less detailed it becomes, but more or less they all parallax properly, because they are all put in their place. There are some additional elements that were done sometimes even inside Nuke. So just taken this image, cutting it out, put on the card and put there. So let's go from left to right. So these are the projection parts that are mapped on each other through merge materials after the projection to complete the projection. Here's something interesting. This is the mask of the sign. Very simple, just these splines that are being tracked by layouting the card here. That is how we are restoring the sign here, right here, because it is in front of everything, right? And they are being carefully blended with motion blur in front of everything that is being comped behind of them, including this bright sky and stuff, but they come from this simple mask in 3D. So going further, what do we have here? A pass of cacti and grass, another pass of them from the other frame, And this is the geometry of the grass and moss and rocks on which they are projected. Cacti. So for the cacti, I did some copies of them and transformed them with their freezed camera to continue them after the Houdini geometry ended here. And that's how they are being rendered there far away, farther than they are on the render from Houdini. So these farther ones are rendered in Nuke. This is some tires, the geometry of which were actually taken from Houdini, but the texture, the actual texture of them, was done out of the real tires that were in the shot. Here they are, here they even have this backdrop for them. I've taken them from here, rotopainted to correct them, take two of them like that, put them together and transformed them there. That's how they work. And they were projected on this Houdini geometry, which we can see here. Not the best layout of script. When you open something that you didn't open for a long time, you always see things that can be improved. Alright, there they are. Found them. So the Houdini geometry, but projected texture from the real footage. Let's go further here. Here comes the power line, which goes pretty far away. Guess because it doesn't require a lot of polygons. And this guy here. This is the proxy geometry of this near power line post that was to be matched with this real log that was somewhere here. It was actually remodeled in Nuke because it was pretty detailed, and when you do the projection with Nuke geometry, it works better. Just works better. Going further here, and this is this sign. Alright, this is this real sign that was rotoscoped from the footage and restored back. There's some glitch there. Yeah, I was the compositor and the supervisor of my own show. That's why there's so much glitches. Because nobody was supervising me. When you are supervising yourself, you can miss things. Alright. I think we are pretty much done with geometry. There are some more things to be discussed. Maybe backgrounds. Alright, we missed the background. Let's discuss the background, how the background was done. Kind of an interesting part of the shot. It was done by taking this 16K HDRI and improving it. Some rocks scattered there, because the only actual part that was used starts from there. And the reason why we needed the spherical map is because we've used it in every shot of this scene, and when we plug it in the new camera of another shot, it was all properly layouted automatically, because the camera is already properly positioned for each shot in Houdini to render their backgrounds. Extracting the alpha here by keying out the sky, making them a little bit lower, then cutting them out with mask. To do a very basic rough and edges mask, you can use an invert node with noise and multiply. So you take the mask, let's just take the 16K reformat node to show you this, and you have some blurriness of your mask here, like this one, and when you are multiplying the noise controlled by inverted mask of this blurred input, you are effectively cutting the edges with the noise. So I think it doesn't work here quite well because the noise is too small. Hey, there's another thing I messed. The noise format should be bigger to actually exist there. That's how you do the rough and edges mask, using only the noise without the plugins, then grading them separately with other masks, because the farther we go, the more milky they should be. So if we look closely here, each mask kinda represents the layer of the mountains that are separated by hand by their depth, and they are lifted more and more and more until the most farther ones are lifted, and in this way they receive a little bit more depth. That's how you add depth to these mountains that are far away. Some of the concept stuff were used, so this was the concept that was originally done in Photoshop for this shot, and I've split it out for passes and actually used some of them to add some difference to these mountains there. So another sky was taken for them, some animated haze for the background, just a little bit, and then mapped onto the sphere, which was rendered here. Yeah. It was also used for some very far elements to just render them faster, I guess for these guys there. For some geometry that is very far away. So all these con lines are rendered to pre-comps here. There's some dust that is being added. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, it is the dust that comes from car. When the car is moving and the dust comes from it. So it was like just a card animated with the car to follow it, so the car will emit the dust. And this is just one of my own stock footages that we've created while I was working on the special effects studio. And this is just a snow, so it can be used for a dust, just needs a little bit of color correction. Like that. So it was all merged here. We can also look closely here how these pre-comps are merged here. So they first of all are filtered through the Z defocus using the same corrected depth for every pre-comp. And then somewhere here the actual ground is being multiplied on them. Yeah, this was actually done somewhere here. I want to show you this. Here it comes, the ground, the actual, footage is multiplied on top of our ground, so it's taken here, gotten by the noise, like that, by some noise created out of multiplying the noises with rotos, which is just some custom noise, and then it is being gotten by this noise, and then it is being merged over our ground. I thought I multiplied it, but it is merged over, yeah. And that's why I've left the whole footage despilled, so that it will nicely blend in with the desert when I will mix it with it. So here, when we are merging things, we are also taking this real sand and this part of the roads that will help us to blend everything and putting it over the desert so that these edges you see will blend in nicely. Then our cacti and desert stuff is being merged over, and here comes the masks of the foreground objects, the cars, some multiplications of the edges of the blurred matte paint so that it will blend in nicely with the background that is being put in under it here, like that. So that's how you do the blending, not only when you are keying things, when you are blending like stuff with background and they have a contrasty intensity. One the foreground has the lower intensity and the background is a very blown out background, so you do stuff like multiplications the same way you do in the keying. You multiply their edges, and to multiply the edges you just use the invert node, so you just create the mask that is the inverted alpha of everything, and then you get all the transparency you need here to affect the edges by the multiplication in this case. Then we are putting some mist on top of everything to enhance the depth, and the mist is always created out of the depth channel. In our case it is very precise as our depth comes from the actual 3D, and then we are correcting some edges here with light wrap, and then the background is being put in under everything. And that's how everything is merged here. On this side, distort is doing some heat distortion, which it creates by looking into the heat haze noise that it takes from the layer heat haze noise, which I believe was created here, mapped on the sphere, and on the ground you create the noise that is kind of mapped on 3D stuff. It only appears at the very end of the sphere there, I remember that, and it is being tracked to the horizon, and then it is being used here to distort the footage. And of course it is animated there, so there's an expression there saying frame multiply 0,1, so each frame it's changing. That's why the iDistort is creating the heat noise, not some static distortion. That's how it was done here. So here are different masks that are used to extract the foreground elements, to use them along with the lens flare that is here, which is producing the actual sun with its glow, and is being added here. So first of all it was cotton by some elements, but then we decided to not to do this, and the grain was restored here. And the wires, you can see them here, but you didn't see them in the geometry. Let's see if we can find them. The wires, where they are. Let's see where they are. Here they are. So this is just a simple noise that is very dark, blurred, and then mapped on top of the geometry of the wires. So no projection, just a simple noise mapped on top of the geometry of the wires, making them dark as they should be. And they are being rendered out from this scanline. And they are just hardly seen here because they are very dark, but they are there. Lens distortion to re-distort the lens back, crop nodes, and render everything to EXRs then. A little bit of time warp here to correct the card that is not actually finished. If you look closely, then you'll see how it struggles to become the real car here, and this was like a very hard moment to recreate, and that's how the car was done. So I mean, the car wasn't moving at all at the start of the footage here, and we needed it to move a little bit more here, so I did the stabilize of the whole footage with the static car. Then I free-timed it to have enough frames to do this animation of it there, warped it to make it parallax a little, but it is the right way to do this, but it just isn't completed, I think, because I still see issues in this moment there. So that's how it is done, just with transform node like that, animated there. Then match moved back to restore the movement that was stabilized of the footage, and then defocus animated here. Alpha is merged and used here. The grain was extended to at the beginning because the shot was extended at the beginning, and this is always the pain in the ass when you extending the shot back. So usually you want to start from the frame 101 to not deal with negative frames in Nuke, because Nuke just doesn't handle negative frames. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Kirill Pleshakov, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. And consider buying me a cup of coffee through Patreon, where I'm giving away the project files, so you can follow along the breakdowns, and there is also a tier where I can connect with you through screen sharing and help you resolve your own tasks and problems in computer graphics. The link to Patreon is in the description, so if you have any feedback or you want me to describe some specific techniques or do some specific tutorials in visual effects, you should write a comment about it so I can see it and improve the content. The information about other artists that were working on the shot is always in the description below. The actual show I'm debuting is also in the description below, and it is called Something for Nothing, and I'm producer and visual effects supervisor of it. It is already fully completed, but we have some complications about the release of it, so I feel like it will take a long time to release it from the moment of uploading this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kirill Pleshakov. Goodbye.